Everyone, on behalf of Wallace State and Wallace State's Common Read Committee, thank you for attending and welcome to the AI Exchange. As everyone of you should know, we selected the Common Read book for this year, 2023-2024, as Frankenstein. It's a classic. There's a lot we could do with the novel. We've been focusing class discussions in several classes. I've heard feedback from several instructors about what they're doing with it exactly in their classes. But we chose that novel specifically so that we could kind of focus in on this idea, this growing, changing idea that has really taken up a lot of space in public discourse and conversation over the past year and a half or so. And that's the idea of artificial intelligence. So I have invited Dr. Leslie Cordie from Auburn University to speak. I also invited Dr. Jerry Dozier from Auburn University, professor of computer science. He had a family emergency come up very last minute a few days ago and was unable to attend. So in his place, we have our very own Mr. Jeremy Wilt. Let's give him a hand. And he will be our first presenter today.
All right, so while I talk real quick, I'm going to turn on my timer. Because anyone who knows me knows that I can talk forever. And being a teacher, I will talk forever. So I will start out by telling you the presentation's AI presentation, right? So how many people knew they were coming to hear about artificial intelligence? Most everybody, right? Well, what if I was to tell you that AI could have stood for something like airborne infantry presentation? It's AI, right? What about awesome instructor? It could mean that as well, right? So my point is you're taking it at face value that that's what you come here to hear, even though this could have been what the topic was on. So I want you to keep in mind that AI is a tool. It's not necessarily always correct or what you thought. So always keep that in mind as you go through AI. So basically what I'm covering real quick, I've been told to give you a quick 10 to 15 minutes about AI, so I'm going to cover what it is. Microsoft, bring up Sophia, and then actually talk about ethical concerns with the AI. So this is me. Naturally, if you didn't know who I was, I can teach computer science and ethics here at Wallace State. People joke that they learn something new about me every time I talk. A lot of people may not know that I've been partnering with Intel and working with them for their AI for workforce, AI for manufacturing, applied ethics for AI. I'm actually about to be working with them with generative AI. I received my MBA and my MPS from UNA, and I'm currently at Athens State finishing off my cybersecurity degree, which will actually be in the fall of 2024. So that's a little bit of background about me. I've been programming since 1992. What that would equivalent to is 5th grade. I was in 5th grade, started a computer science club at the school, started typing away on an Apple IIe computer, and started programming, and I've been doing it ever since. So naturally, I started my academic endeavor wanting to be a marine biologist. Well, then got married and decided to get a full-time job, quit college, then decided to go back. And it's at that point where I was like, well, what do I do now? And everybody laughs, said, look around your house, you have computer parts everywhere. So I started my computer science track then and then wound up coming back to Wallace State. So I was an alumni from Wallace State, and I'm proud to be back here to teach. So what is AI? What could we actually talk about what it is? Well, with artificial intelligence, we actually have the AI's ability to stimulate the human brain factor, problem solving. So we as humans have that capability to solve problems on our own. And we think about different things, critical thinking skills. Well, we can also have AI that does that. And then like it says, building AI means creating an artificial intelligence machine. So when we look at robotics and automation, all of those things have some play with AI. So when we think about AI, it can be any type of assistant that we use. And I actually have that coming up in a little bit, comparing Alexa maybe or Siri. But deep learning is actually talking about neural networks. So if you're ever interested in AI or learning more about AI, neural networks is not something you're going to start with. Neural networks is actually something that's far advanced. We have programmers that are working on it all the time. But it's those mindsets that we have to test. So it's basically modeling and simulations. and you're running it over and over again. But AI is a tool that can help us. Machine learning is where it's actually learning from the algorithms. But AI is just something that incorporates all of that. It's an all-inclusive term for using technologies. So when we look at Microsoft, if I was to ask you what comes to mind to you when you think of maybe Microsoft in AI? I'm still good on time. So has anybody ever heard of Bing? Not the search engine? Bing is their new AI counterpart. But what about before then? So Siri, right? Alexa. We actually have these that we use to interact with and ask them to do something, right? Well, the cool part with Microsoft, this will show you how much of a nerd I am, is Cortana. So Microsoft created Cortana, and the reason I have that picture is anybody a Halo fan? I'm a Halo fan from way back. Cortana was actually in the game. Cortana was, they have a Master Chief, was the head soldier there that organized everything. Well, Cortana was used to help him in AI. Told him how to act, what to do, gave him instant feedback. So that improved him as a soldier. Now my question is, how far away are we from that right now, right? You're starting to see some of this that was thought of as being never going to happen into present times. So we have these. Elon Musk is now trying to implement and put chips in people so you can communicate without even having to speak. So it is kind of in that process now of outside of science fiction to reality. And so that's the reason I chose to just throw the picture of Cortana up there, is because that's where we started. That's where Microsoft started. So now I'm going to talk to you about Frankenstein because of the common read, right? Well, when you read Frankenstein, you may have not thought that that was talking about artificial intelligence. But we are talking about technology that was used and powered by electricity that created this being, or they call the creature. So how far are we from that? We can actually 3D print body parts now. We can actually do those transplants. But how many people has heard of Sophia? If I was to tell you Sophia, the robot. Some people may have never heard about Sophia before. But Sophia, the robot, is actually a citizen now. Pakistan actually was the one who said we're going to grant her citizenship, right? And what's funny is when you have a robot like this in conversation and it's on stage or people start referring to this robot, we would say robot, robot, robot. Most people say her. They have given Sophia basically a sentient being status. So if I refer to her as she, that's what she is. It's a female robot that was generated. Well, now she's actually part of the first robot with the Innovation Ambassador for the United Nations program. So AI is now being recognized and perceived as this, and I would say, I don't know what all will be covered here soon, but I don't want to steal anything away, but how would you like to have a robot that can do underwater welding? Has anybody went to YouTube and watched an underwater welding on an oil rig? How dangerous is that? Well, if you can substitute a robot or AI to do that, then it's a safer job for everybody. Same thing for, let's just take COVID. What if you had a robot that could actually take care of patients? Didn't have to worry about a nurse contracting a disease. All of that stuff is being thought about, and a lot of that was being implemented in China, actually. They actually had nurses, but they were robots. And they would go in and take care of the patients and do different things. So AI, just think about it as not just computers, not just robots, it's all of that. But Sophia was created, right? Just kind of like Frankenstein. And I'll show you a quick video at the end of how that may, most everybody will know this video, surely. I won't give it away yet, but I'm pretty sure it will. It's only like a minute long. But for ethical concerns, have you ever wondered about ethics? Have you ever wondered about morality? Have you ever wondered about bias? Have we? Sure, I think all of us have. We're not alone. But have we also wondered about AI? What have they done? Well, I've been actually teaching in the past 7 to 8 years in my ethics class. I've been talking about AI and ethics. So I've been covering it for the past 8 years to my classes about how AI can be impacted from an ethical standpoint. And that's really where we have to focus. And this is taken from the Intel's Digital Readiness Program. So this is one of the slides that we can actually talk about how we have the ethics. And basically it's talking about guidelines. What guidelines would we follow? How would we follow these guidelines? Then we develop something based on those guidelines, transitions to the AI technologies, and then we find that it does have some ethical responsibility to it. But hopefully I can get it to work. I wanted to pull up ChatGPT. And let's run a scenario. How would you handle the scenario? How will AI handle ethics? What does it have to say about it? What does it have to say about morals? What does it have to say about bias? So that's what I'm wanting to do with this. And so since we'll close the presentation, I'll just move on to the last slide and then close it. But this, what is this from? Hey, Jurassic Park.
Scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, they just thought they should.
That's true, right? That's where we're at. Just because we can, should we? Just because you could use ChatGPT to write a paper, should we? No. Because you're not technically learning. You're not expressing that. But, like I said at the beginning, that's the reason I was giving you different terminologies for AI. How do you know that paper it wrote is correct? AI is not 100% correct. So the reason we knew AI was artificial intelligence is we were told. We knew that. We knew what we were coming into. We knew the facts. But if we didn't, if we just saw AI, somebody might think it's AI, but I could have just as easily swapped it for airborne infantry. I could have swapped it for anything for AI and then just started with that presentation. So the same thing can happen with ChatGPT when you look at it from that standpoint. So I'm going to close that down. Yeah, I'm doing good on time, so I'll be all right. All right. So I'm just curious. This is not admitting guilt. How many people have actually used ChatGPT as far as faculty, staff, adults, students? I tell people all the time that I would recommend going in to see what it does, what you can actually do with it. Two-factor authentication. That was another reason I brought my phone. Not just to time myself, but I knew it was going to ask me for that. All right, so the scenario that I can ask it, let's say that if I was in class, I could have actually said, is it ethical for a person to steal food if their family, well, if I can type, family is starving. Let's just see what that comes back. So naturally, I know this is a generated session and it's doing its best, right? It says the ethical considerations can vary based on cultural, philosophical, personal beliefs, and many ethical frameworks. So it's giving you a broad topic. It's not really answering us, right? But it does come down and it does say that legal systems recognize that theft is wrong and there could be criminal charges. But in the bottom part, it just says, in any case, if someone is facing extreme hardship and is considering such actions, it may be beneficial to seek assistance from social services, charitable organizations, or community resources to find alternative ways. Now, that would be interesting. Let's say if I was the person that was going to steal the food because my family was starving, and I went to ChatGPT and typed it in. Well, I know it's wrong, what can happen to me, but it might be okay, but let's seek those social services. The reason I say that is because when I was actually at the police department, we had a lady who stole about $550 worth of just food from Walmart, and during court you found out that her and her husband both lost a job. They had 3 to 4 kids, and they were starving. Well, naturally, I asked my students in my ethics class, I'm like, well, is that unethical? Is it immoral? Sure, it's against the law to steal, so you could say it may be unethical, but what about immoral? What about your morals? So that person thought that was their only alternative, but this AI system tells you exactly what we told them. Do you realize how many churches we have? Do you realize how many social outreach programs we have? So we were able to get them help. The judge was nice enough to release them and let them do community service to work off the fines and cost. So at the end of the day, everything did work out for that family. But that's something that's interesting about how it would handle this situation. But let's ask it, is AI moral? It says it does not pose moral or ethics. They are designed as a tool. That's basically what it's going in telling you. Now, what the interesting thing is we may say, okay, yes, we understand that AI may not have morals or morality. We may know that or we would have assumed that it didn't have those, right? Well, how can we go a little bit farther? Now let's ask the question, is AI biased? And it tells you, yes, AI is biased. So why is AI biased? Bingo, because people are biased. AI is something that we are teaching it. It is learning from us. So what we teach this, it will feed back to us. So that's how some of the problems when it gives you fake information is because it doesn't have that information, or it may try to make it up the best way it can. But think about that with the bias. And all of that can go into if you're actually using the system to scan images in healthcare. How could that be biased, right? Well, what if I only taught the system to recognize a male or a female, not both? So if all I fed into the AI system was male scans, when a female was having a problem, it may miss something because it doesn't understand the system it's looking at. So, showing you that, even AI admits that it has bias, but it's because of us. So that's where the ethics comes in. It's not something that we have to be afraid of. It's something that we need to embrace, yes, because it's here. As you'll find out here in a little bit, AI has been around for a while. And it may shock you how long AI has been around. I mean, I've been talking about ethics in AI for the past 7 years. And then it even goes way, way back dealing with AI. Now, some of the definitions and terminologies and things like that change through time, but AI has been around for a while. So we're at the standpoint now where we have to live with it. We have to accept the change, figure out how we're going to use it, how we're going to use it as a tool. And it's just like any tool, right? What if I misuse a hammer? If I misuse a saw? I can hurt myself, right? Same thing with AI. It's a tool. If we misuse AI, we can hurt ourselves. So it's just down to us as individuals. So that's where humanity comes in important when we start talking about morality and policies and all that being generated. So that will be my stint. I'm a little bit over 15 minutes, but I'll go ahead and welcome Doran up, and he can introduce our next speaker to us. But I thank you for your time. Hopefully you enjoyed the speech. Let me close all this out.
So I would like to take a moment to introduce our next speaker, Dr. Leslie Cordie. But as she's getting ready to come on up, I'd also like to go ahead and really one or two other things at the audience going on.
This is just for the live feed.
Okay. First of all,
Have it.
So loud. And then what did you do? Just stick it
and I
together.
never realized before where artificial intelligence ChatGPT can generate false information, not just biased information, but in order to
Did I bring my phone?
talk, it can
I gotta grab my phone for time.
but untrue information. And that's called a hallucination. That's what programmers call it, a hallucination, AI hallucination. And I sort of, as an English teacher, maybe it's just because I have a sort of very weird love-hate relationship with words sometimes, the words we choose to use. But the implication of artificial intelligence only feeding us back what we want to hear and what we have told it before, but then it can hallucinate its own information. And usually we think of hallucinations when we're not in the right state of mind, when we're, maybe we've taken a medication and it's affecting our state of mind. But artificial intelligence programmers call that hallucinations as well. So just weird food for thought that Jeremy made me think of. So now, as Dr. Cordie is getting ready, Dr. Cordie is an Auburn professor. She teaches in the College of Education. She's a professor of adult education and workforce development. And I'd like for everyone to give her a warm welcome.
Thank you so much for being here this morning. I asked if there were free goodies given away. I heard that there's a professional development certificate, but I'm very pleased. I've met a few of you, so I really appreciate the time that you're going to spend this morning. I've never been to Wallace State Community College. It's wonderful to see the citizens out there being taken advantage of the education here on this campus. So why am I here? I'm a part of Auburn University's AI at AU initiative. It is a provost-driven initiative. We have about $2 million. We're trying to create collaborative workspaces, not only with engineering, computer science, but also in education. We have several committees. I know that your president is part of a workforce development initiative from the governor of the state of Alabama. Two of our professors are part of that workforce development committee. So the state of Alabama is interested in what's happening with AI, especially in terms of the workforce. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about this morning. Some of the challenges in terms of the trends of work, where we're going, right? We don't necessarily know about the future. What are those workforce transformations that we need to be aware of? Where are the jobs going? What types of jobs are there? Then what types of skills and education and training should we give to the people so that they can be prepared to be in those careers? And then my favorite topic is developing a lifelong mindset because of the amount of change and the rapidity of the change that is coming. I do want to share a little bit about me so you know where these maybe wrinkles and the different accent comes from. I didn't grow up in Alabama. I've been in Alabama now for about 20 years, but I grew up in the Midwest. I started out as a public health nurse. It was very near and dear to my heart. I did a lot of health education with the community and knew that I wanted to continue working with the public in terms of education. And I'll date myself, all right, I was a public health nurse during the HIV crisis, which is similar to the crisis that we're having now, right, in terms of the pandemic and some of those issues. I went back to school, got a graduate degree, a master's in business administration, and took a little bit of a detour, worked for the airlines in terms of computer science and quality management, moved overseas, was able to work for the University of Maryland Asian Division, lived in Japan for a few years, and knew that I wanted to come back and get my PhD. I have a PhD from Colorado State University in education and technical communication around 2005. That was before distance learning was even a thing, and I've been teaching online since 1995, and so we really all know what online learning is now based upon the pandemic. When I came to Auburn, I was a distance learning specialist, so I did faculty development, teaching them how to put things online and how to use technologies. I moved into a faculty position. I am now a tenured faculty member. A lot of my research has to do with the adult learner, how they transition to the workplace, what types of skills they need. I've had the opportunity also to be a Fulbright scholar. I don't know if any of you are aware of that. There are Fulbright programs for not only faculty, but administrators and students. I encourage you to look that up. I was able to live in another country, work with them, and help their community college develop a hybrid online degree completion program. And I'm continuing research across the globe with the Research Network in Asia and Europe, and we're looking at the workforce and the workforce expectations. So that's all my credentials, but this is who I really am. I am a mom. I have 2 grown daughters, one of who's a nurse, one who's in fashion design, and I can't remember, I met a young lady earlier who's also looking at fashion design. I'm a spouse. I'm a motorcycle driver. You could see my little Ural there. I just got my motorcycle license. I'm a dog mom, and I'm also a cancer survivor. So that's how I identify most likely to most of you. So what are we going to talk about this morning? The future. So Jeremy helped us with some of those ideas, right? We're a little bit uncertain about what's going to be happening. What are we supposed to be doing? How are we supposed to be using those tools? What are the ethics and morality in terms of that? And I encourage you as adults and lifelong learners, hopefully, to think about it as positively as you can, because you can be in control of where you want to be and what skills that you can attain. Where does this all come from? We should know that society has been impacted by tools, technologies for many, many years, and we go by this in terms of the historians. We talk about it in terms of industrialization. So we have 4 different periods that have been identified in terms of industrialization. The first, of course, being mechanization, right? When we move from an agrarian society to a manufacturing society by using different types of tools. We had the trains, we had the cotton gin, et cetera, and so forth. In the second industrialization, which was in the late 1800s, we saw electricity come about, right? And we were able to develop the assembly line and more manufacturing. People were able to develop their skills in the cities. They were a workforce that was able to gain more pay. They were able to get more education, and so we developed that first session or the first section of workers who had some choices in terms of whether they wanted to, what types of jobs they wanted to be in. The third industrial revolution came about in the 1900s with the assembly line. Some of us will know that in terms of the Model T or the Ford car right here in the United States. And then the fourth industrial revolution, which we think of as now with the Internet of Things, right, with the idea that we can work across the globe, work with others. There's biotechnologies and other things. Now, Jeremy also alluded to the fact that we really are probably in the fifth industrial revolution, where we're combining people with the sentient beings in a variety of ways, and we call these cognitive learning systems. So you can see we're rapidly changing. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like, and so we have to try to think about the worker and embrace some of those ideas. So y'all, I think I didn't see everybody raise their hand, but we all know this has been going on for a while, right? But in the past year and a half, we've had some things happen out there in the news that we've been aware of, right? ChatGPT came along about a year and a half ago, and it really in this past November, it just exploded. It's available to the public. You saw Jeremy use it, ChatGPT 3.5, but there's been a ChatGPT 4, right? And I encourage my students to look at it, use it, understand the ethics, morality of it. They have to acknowledge that they've used it in terms of looking it up, prompting it, but I encourage you, as Jeremy did, to play with it and think about it, what it does. We've had some new policies come about in late 2023. They had a summit, a cybersecurity summit over in the UK. The White House had an executive order in November. We've had a declaration here in early February from Governor Ivey talking about the workforce. Not only will they look at the different types of skills, but they're going to look about how generative AI will also impact you as workers. For those of you who are music fans, right, there's a new Beatles song out there, right, called The New Song, with two of those members who haven't been with us for decades, right, John Lennon and George Harrison, but they've created a new song. Those of you who have lived at the coast know that we have these wonderful technologies in terms of telling us when storms are coming, right, when we should take cover and for shelter. And then, of course, there's Khan Academy out there that can be used for individual learning for a variety of curriculum. I know our younger learners have used it quite a bit, but we also have medical people that can go to it, pre-vet, pre-med, nursing, science, technology. I encourage you to explore Khan Academy as one of those tools of learning that are available to you free to the public. So where are we going, and what should we think about as individuals in terms of our personal lives, our professional lives, what industries, who should be our partners, what are some of the things that we need to think about? They say that there are some high exposure jobs out there, that 1 out of every 5 US workers is going to be affected by AI. Some of those people who are more effective are probably in more administrative roles because there are tools that can help us do those tasks more readily. That may lead to an elimination of over 85 million jobs, but then on the flip side of that, there may be a creation of over 97 million jobs. So that's a net surplus. So I encourage you to think at the positive part of it is that maybe you, even though you may not be doing what you're doing today, in 5 years you may be doing something new and something that you would like to do more in terms of your passions. The place where work is going to be completed will change, right? We saw that during the pandemic. People didn't necessarily work in their same locations. They were able to do remote work. We know that we have to connect globally across time zones with different industries and different people. So the idea where work is completed may also change. And then we have to look at the rate of adoption of technology, right? What are those industries that are going to change their technologies? What are the workplaces where those industries need to be? And what are the skills that would be required for those different types of jobs? Now, Jeremy already talked to you about AI in everyday life, right? If you have an iPhone, you've already used AI. Or if you have a Droid, you've already used AI. This morning, or actually when I left yesterday, on my calendar was coming to Wallace State Community College. And it knew that I was leaving, and it told me when to leave and where I was going to go. Automatically, my maps came up. And I was like, wow, that's so wonderful. Little scary, but wonderful, right? It knew where I was going. Also, you know, many of us have looked at Amazon, right? Since we can order almost anything anywhere, there's a whole slew of jobs related to AI that are from Amazon. You can see it also in your personal life because you can go and purchase something. It tells you, right, what colors are available, and it also gives you recommendations of what you should buy with it, right, or what the comparisons are. And the other day, I thought I needed some new lamps. I brought it up, brought Amazon up, typed in sort of what I needed in terms of my bedroom lamps, what colors I was looking for, and boom, in less than 15 minutes, I had 2 new lamps for my bedroom, and my husband's little watch went off because his Amazon account is connected to his Apple Watch, and he knew I had bought them. That was not a good day. What are some examples, though, specifically that we can look to in terms of workplace AI examples that are already out there? Okay? I'm going to go just through 3 of them pretty quickly. Let me make sure that I'm on time, too. All right, about halfway through there. Healthcare, finance, and retail. Healthcare, finance, and retail. And I know there's computer science people out there, but there were some business people, there was a fashion person, and there's definitely some nursing science people. So these are relevant to all of you, but especially to those. In this diagram, you can see how AI is already being used in terms of diagnosing diseases and treatment, helping with looking at x-rays, right? Looking at MRIs, CT scans. We also have the capability of gene editing. Found out just a few weeks ago there's gene editing in terms of sickle cell anemia, also with cholesterol, that maybe we can not only stop the progression of the disease, but perhaps improve the quality of life, right? There's robots that help with surgery, right? Different types of laser surgery, brain surgeries out there. And then there's inventions of drugs, innovation in drugs, right? Vaccines used to take many, many decades to come to fruition, and now we saw that some of these vaccines in the past few years, right, with the pandemic, it took less than a year for them, and AI has assisted. If you're wearing a watch or a Fitbit, that's telling you how many steps you walked, did you get a good night's sleep, right? How many calories you burn. That's another AI-assisted technology. For those of you who have had relatives or yourself, you have diabetes, you can do diabetic monitoring, right, without having to poke your finger. I had my father just do this in the past few months. He wasn't checking his sugar. It caused a problem, right? We ended up in the hospital. Even though he's a type 2 diabetic, which means he doesn't have to take insulin, he wasn't doing a very good job of what he was eating, right? He doesn't like to hear that from his daughter. But I convinced him to use one of these sensors, the Dexcom sensor, and he's always with his iPhone, so he's able to check his sensor. And he was back in the hospital, and when the dietitian came in, she encouraged me to download the app that reads the monitor. And so now I can tell at night what's happening with my dad. And I can say to him, "What's your sugar like, Dad? What did you eat?" "Oh, I just had a cookie." That's always his answer. "I had a cookie last." All right. And then really wonderful different types of things. The size of a credit card out there. You see the 2 little fingers on that device there. That can actually, the size of a credit card, it has those sensors. It can do an EKG for you and send that to your doctor in a matter of minutes. So there are just some wonderful things that can be happening in terms of monitoring healthcare, allowing our healthcare workers to really educate and work with these patients rather than spending the time with the tools, right? They can instantly have feedback on what they can do in terms of education. And finance. How many of you have a Venmo app, Cash App, or Zelle on your iPhone or Droid? Look at that. More than half of you, maybe more 3/4 of you, right? That's AI technology out there where you can do banking anytime, anywhere. I still do go and get cash from the from the ATM, but that's still a very few and far between because I can use my Apple Wallet, right? I can pay Starbucks with just my phone. So that's AI technology. We can have customer service, right, in terms of pressing 1, pressing 2, pressing 3, and talking to the phone in terms of not only financial industries, but also other industries. And then we can look at it in terms of the market and insurance. Retail. I love the idea that we can go shopping anywhere, anytime, like we said with Amazon. There are some apps out there that can help you navigate the industry. When you walk into a store, it can tell you where things are at. It might even be able to tell you if that dress is in stock as you walk into the store. It's wonderful. There's also these virtual apps out there, right? You can try before you buy. Anybody done a try before you buy? Right. You can look and see what that table will look like or that bed will look like in your home. And then of course you can order those glasses. You can see how good they're going to look on you and if you're going to be stylish, like Warby Parker, right? I've gotten a couple pairs of glasses from them. But there are exponential changes, so it's all not fun. It can be scary, it can be confusing, it can be negative, I think, in some ways. There's not always the positivity, right, in terms of if we're losing our job. So we have to look at the learner, the worker, in terms of what these changes mean to them. So they have shifting expectations. Can they work from home? What does their work-life balance look like? How many new skills do they have to use? How long is it going to take to use the technologies? What are the technologies that they're going to have to be using? Also, what are those workforce positions? What will those job descriptions look like in the next 5 to 10 years? Will they be able to get those skills? Who's going to help them pay for those skills and the training and credential? And then the globalization of workplaces. We don't necessarily work with just the person down the street, nor do we have to come to a specific workplace. We work across time zones, we work across countries, right? I have to collaborate with the people in the research network that I told you about earlier. They're in Asia and in Europe. Some days I have to get up for a meeting at 3 a.m. and sometimes we rotate that, and then I'm only, getting up maybe at 6 a.m. or 8 a.m. The other night I was at 11 p.m. So we rotate those team meetings so that we can address those different time zones. So are you ready, right? What does the road look like? What does the path look like to being prepared? Building the workforce probably will be easily done if we look at these two things, digital literacy and digital citizenship. Digital literacy is the same idea of those literacy skills that you already have been indoctrinated in terms of reading, math, right, and numeracy, reading, math, and numeracy. But this goes a little farther in terms of thinking about it in terms of the technologies. You can look at the idea of where your information comes from, how you're going to create that information, how you communicate that information to others, who are the others that you're going to be working with, and then what is the safe environment in terms of what safety and security do you need to know about operating in the internet environment. In the workplace, these are the top skills that we should be thinking about when we acquire those skills. We have to be able to look at those numbers and think about what they mean. We have to be able to share and work in the cloud environment. We have to be safe. And we have to be able to understand that those skills are transferable, right? That even though we're using this technology today, we're using ChatGPT 3.5, we have to understand that there's going to be a ChatGPT 5, a ChatGPT 6, etc. And then embrace the idea that artificial intelligence may be the idea that it would make your job easier or more enjoyable. Digital citizenship goes beyond the idea of being able to use those technologies, going beyond the idea of emotional skills. Jeremy alluded to the fact that we have to have the idea of, is this ethical, is this moral? Do we have access to those technologies? Are there people who are not having access to technologies, and what does that mean? Right? And so being a good digital citizen means that you have those essential technology, communication skills, but you're able to collaborate with others, understand their viewpoints, and work together for the betterment of the workplace and the betterment of society. So people, I don't want us to forget that it's not just about the tools, it's not just about the machines, it's about the people, right? We have to know what's happening with them, how they're being effective, and be empathetic, right? Everyone should be important. We should treat others the way we want to be treated. I know that sounds like we're preaching, but it's important to think about it as these rapid changes are coming about. And then we have to think about where they're getting their information, how they're getting the information, and do they understand the credibility of sources, right? Jeremy alluded to the fact that the AI is only getting information from us. Who is the us that is putting that information into the computer? So access is really important so that we can try to remove bias and build the credibility of that artificial intelligence. And then being open to a variety of multiple viewpoints, right? It's not just about what's happening here in Alabama. It's not just happening down the street. It's what's happening not only in this region, it's across the world, right? So when do we prepare? I would say to you as an adult educator and a lifelong learner myself, that we need to think about learning across the lifespan, right? What types of tools and technologies are we preparing people to use not only at kindergarten, not only in middle school, not only in high school, as we push them out the door into the workplace or into post-secondary education. And then the older learner, right? We're working and living longer. It's important to include those different generations in the workplace in terms of those teachings and technologies. In the past, right, prior to 2000, we probably did front loading of education. We were very concerned about K through 12, right, up until the early career, sort of your first or second career as you moved away from high school and into the workplace or higher education. And you can see from this timeline that we just kind of kept learning stagnant as we move into later phases. I would encourage you, and the researchers would encourage you, that learning needs to happen across the lifespan, and we have to understand that maybe we need to bring everyone's ideas to the table and understand how we might be able to keep them working happier longer. And Chris Dede talks about then this lifelong learning mindset. He says that it is positive skepticism. So we know we can't be positive about everything, but we can, as we face the future, we can have the idea of a growth mindset, that learning is not one and done, right? That we are curious and we want to find out about new things, that we're resilient, that we're in control of sort of what's happening to us, and we're mindful about what's happening to others, and that we're able to adapt to these new learning environments, that there's some agility and flexibility in terms of this is maybe not how we did it before, but how are we going to do it in the future? Now, how can we do that? I would tell you that there are many different tools out there that you can take advantage of right now, and most of you probably have dipped your toes into this. If you've Googled, you've gone to your online library, you've already dipped your toes into personalized learning. And so AI can help you with this. And 3 different areas are LinkedIn Learning, open educational resources, and AI tutoring. Has anybody used LinkedIn Learning at all? Okay, there's a few of you, yeah, okay. Do you have it available to you from Wallace State Community? That's wonderful, right? Auburn also has it, and lots of different workplaces have it. You can learn it anytime, anywhere, on a lot of different subjects. I think they do a wonderful job. I've even taught myself. I've gone for different types of classes. I've looked at different curriculum to bring to my students. There are experts there, right? More expert than I could ever be, and I can tap into their. I can also earn a credential, and I think I promised David a credential earlier for helping me set up my presentation, but you can earn a certificate, so you can have this credential that can be used in any type of workplace. You can practice your skills, you can reflect on your learning, you can apply it right in the moment. Other open educational resources out there, or OERs as they call them, MIT, Massachusetts of Information Technology has courses that are available for you to look at. You can look at them for free, but in order to get the credential, you do have to usually pay for it, but that's available. There are open textbooks available out to you. And then OER Commons is another collaborative space, mostly for teachers and instructors. There's a variety of subjects out there that align to different types of standards, especially in the K through 12 environment, but there's also vocational training out there too. And then Khan Academy. Anybody has used Khan Academy? Yeah, okay, Khan Academy is great. There's wonderful things out there, and they now have a new AI tutor, so you can do some prompts. It's called Camingo, I think, and I haven't used that one yet, but I encourage you to do so. There are other AI tutorings out there depending upon the industry. You can work with a computer in terms of watching what you do, right? It can video record you, it can watch your keystrokes, you can speak to the information and it matches your skill, tells you where you need some new skills, maybe where you needed to go back and match that. It is an experiential form of learning, and experiential learning is applied learning. You know, those are the things that you do in your labs. I know most of you are very familiar with that in terms of this. And you do the skill and you demonstrate the skill. This is the same idea, and it utilizes reflection and feedback. All right, so with that, I want to say there are many different things that are going to be happening. I hope you're passionate about the idea of using technologies, moving into maybe new careers. We don't necessarily have the same career. You can see that I had a variety of careers, and you can reinvent yourself as a lifelong learner. So this is from the Super Bowl. I don't know if you saw this, but this was about Microsoft Copilot, which is available from Microsoft. Let's see if I can go ahead and play it.
Morning.
Watch me.
So with that, I say embrace the uncertainty, go along for the ride, be the lifelong learner, and just jump into the next pond if you can. So thank you very much.
Thank you again, Dr. Cordie. Now, I'd like to open the floor briefly. If anyone has any questions for Jeremy or Dr. Cordie, then you just think on that for a second. You can raise your hands if you have any questions for them. I'd actually like to start, Dr. Cordie, if that's right with you. I have a question. One of the things you suggested that we move into our curriculum, or just in general we tend to focus on in our own teaching styles, is the idea of digital literacy and digital citizenship. I read some research recently suggesting that that Gen Alpha, like the kids of today, that they might actually be less digitally literate because of the way we're sort of packaging all of this. They have less understanding about the way to navigate the internet unless it's in an app form, basically. And I'm just wondering, how do you see something like that, if you have thought of that or read any research on that? Do you see digital literacy in the future going up or going down? Do you know what I mean?
I never assume what someone knows when they come to the classroom, right? And especially if they're a younger learner, so even if they've held that phone in their hand for a long time, it doesn't necessarily mean that they know how to use it. Now, I'm excited when they want to share, right, how they've learned, what types of tools they use. So I embrace the idea of bringing the learner to the classroom and more peer-to-peer learning. But so don't assume. And the idea is that, you need to understand your learner, right, and talk to them about what they use it for, how they use it. And the idea of those ethics and morality, right, they have to understand which sources they're using. Are they credible sources or validated sources of learning? I think that's where we suffer probably the most, no matter what age we are, is just that what does it mean to be a credible source of information, right? Who's the author? What are their credentials? How old is that information? And other credibility. That will try to remove some of the bias from that information and help them use that information better. I hope that answers.
Any other questions? Yes.
So my director and I were talking about GPT the other day, and my icon was green, and hers was black, and they were the same, and hers was free, and mine was trying to charge me. Was I on the wrong account? I mean, I just don't want to be charged, or I want to tell my students which one is available for free. The icons are the same, they were the same.
So, Jeremy, you have the account.
That I do. All right, so if you actually look at it, it's chat, OpenAI, and all that. That's free. So Chat GPT 3.5 is free. It'll require you to have, like you saw, I had to have a Google account or some account. And so all of that is free. Now the Chat GPT 4 that is available does cost money. But it does a lot of extra stuff. You can actually create images and all this other kind of stuff with it. But the actual OpenAI platform, like I could go on there right now, and that's the challenge that I have, and my students are going to experience this in the near future, is like I can go on there right now and say I want to create a program that does this, and it will generate it in any language I want. And normally it'll run. So what I'm doing in my classes is now I'm making the students use ChatGPT to generate their program, and then they have to change some things, run it again, take snapshots of those, put it in a PowerPoint, and then tell me what they've learned. So it's taking that, letting them use the AI, but then what did you learn? Just because you copied and pasted doesn't mean you learned anything. You just learned how to click a button and run it. And so that's, to them, that's how they can use it, and it's free. So 3.5 is free right now, and keep that in mind, everybody. There is, I always joke in ethics that one of the forms of power is money, and sometimes money can corrupt people. And so with that, AI is no different. They are actually looking at how, I don't remember, do you know that it was like the second day ChatGPT launched, it was like 30 million users or something like that had used it in the second day it opened. So that began the conversation of how do we monetize this? So eventually, all AI may have a charge with it. But right now, ChatGPT 3.5 is free. So you can go online, type in ChatGPT, but it's like either chatopenai.com or something like that, yeah. And that's the free version. So you can have a prompt, ask it questions all day long, and it's free. It'll generate it. It even keeps a track for you. But then, like I just completed the Auburn, I don't remember what they called it, but it's the Auburn class. So I completed that one. But a lot of tools that I found useful in there. And it was the fact that I could create a rubric. And I was like, whoa, you mean I can create that and I don't have to spend hours of thinking about this rubric? Because of me using AI, I've never thought about doing that. But yes, it is free. So you could have been trying to use 4.0 if there was a charge to it. But it is free.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes.
So, in terms of what you were talking about, like media literacy, for us as individuals, obviously recognizing the skills we need to have, something that we can be conscious of doing. But on like a larger kind of societal scale, how much of that do you think is fixable by just individually encouraging people to be more literate with the digital media? And how much of that do you think is kind of like systemic issues caused by the way our systems are set up currently encourages bad behavior in terms of following down rabbit holes of not necessarily correct information, and the algorithms that kind of direct you online not being necessarily in your best interest, and sometimes having not good incentive structures in terms of not being beneficial towards your digital literacy.
That was quite a question. We'll have to probably answer that in parts, I bet.
Wow. So I think it goes back to the earlier point that I made, right? I think that when we teach, right, the idea is that we're becoming, we want the learner to become connoisseurs of the information, right? And so it's not just about memorization. It's just not about memorization. And that can happen at any age, right? The idea is that we don't learn something by just looking at it. Jeremy just said, right, he copying and pasting it. So it's good instruction, I think, and good parenting, and then just good ethics in terms of how we learn and how we utilize information. I think we're going to grapple with these questions about ethics in society, but I think they relate to things that are already right in our society about where do we get information, who's in charge of information, right? Do we have to have a policy in place and a rule in place to help us understand where we're supposed to go? And that's why we develop these committees that bring in industry, educators, administrators, universities, things like that, so that we can make the best decisions about where we're going. And yes, it does come down to you as a learner, right? As a person, that you understand that you should pause, think, reflect about what's going on, and then open yourself up to multiple viewpoints, I think, is what I said earlier. And that's just becoming a self-directed learner and being responsible for the learning. The teacher is not always right? It's not about necessarily being right. It's about having that dialogue about what we should do with that information. That's what you do in your classroom. I think you're a good teacher, right? I hope so. Right? Sounds like you are. I'd like to take your class. Now, there is, Jeremy mentioned that class, so I don't know if you're a faculty member or a staff member or a student, but there is a class that's that's available. I guess Wallace is bought into it, or from Auburn. It's across the SEC, and I think other people can do it. I would encourage you, if you're faculty and staff, to take that course, right? I think it doesn't take very long. It takes about 10 hours. You get a credential, right? You get something stamped from Auburn War Eagle. And it does talk about some of the tools that you can use and the things that you should think about in the classroom. But you can also go to like the American Association of Colleges and Universities. There's a bunch of rubrics that are available to you to help develop your curriculum, and one of them is about helping develop lifelong learners. And those are the same skills that I mentioned in my presentation.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, well, thank you everyone for attending. Let's have one more round of applause for Dr. Cordie.